Hello students, welcome to the Professional Ethics and Indian Constitution class. Now, in this today's session, I will discuss about some concepts regarding Indian Constitution. Okay? Indian Constitution, andre Bharatada Samvidhana. First, we will see some definition about Indian Constitution. Okay? The word constitution means it is obtained from a Latin term constitutes. Constitute meaning is to form or to establish. Therefore, the Constitution is defined as it is the formation or the establishment of the fundamental law which determines some political structure of the state. Constitution andre it is a formation or establishment of fundamental law. That fundamental law will determine the political structure of the state. The different definition of the constitution is given by different political scholars such as according to Dicey, the constitution means it is all the rules which directly or indirectly affect the distribution or exercise of sovereign power in the state. According to Gilchrist, the constitution means it is the fundamental rules which regulate the distribution of powers in the state and determine the form of the government. According to Bryce, constitution means it is a set of established rules and regulations. According to the Cooley, a constitution means it is the fundamental law of the state containing the principles on which the government is founded. Here we can see the overall definition given to the constitution as constitution means it is the fundamental rules. Constitution contains fundamental rules or the laws of the land which establishes and coordinates the main organs of the state such as legislature state, executive state and judiciary state. And it also defines their powers and establishes the responsibilities and regulates the relationship with one another. And it also defines the powers of central as well as state governments and establish relationship between them. And it also lists some rights and duties of the citizens. Constitution is overall it is defined as constitution means it contains some fundamental rules and the laws. Okay, and which also establishes different organs of the state such as legislature state, executive state, and their powers and establishes some responsibilities. And it also defines some powers of central as well as state government. And it also defines the responsibilities of central and state government. And also establishes some relationship between the people as well as state by listing their fundamental duties and rights of citizens. Now I will give some brief explanation about formation and composition of Constituent Assembly. After the passing of the Indian Independence Act of 1947, the Constituent Assembly became an independent body. The strength of the constitution making body was to be 389. Okay. Uh, the strength of the Constituent Assembly is 389. This 389 contains 296 representatives from British India and 93 representatives from Indian native states. After after the partition of the country on 15th August 1947, the strength of Constituent Assembly got reduced from 389 to 308. The Constituent Assembly had its first sitting on the 9th December of 1946. Dr. Sachidananda was the oldest member of the House and he was elected as the interim president. Okay, Dr. Sachidananda was elected as interim president. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as its permanent president on 11th December 1946. Next, we'll see some features of Constitution of India. ಭಾರತದ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ characteristics ಅಥವಾ features. These are the different features of Indian Constitution of India. The silent features of Constitution of India. It is the lengthiest constitution in the world. It is written constitution. It is partly rigid and partly flexible. A federation with a strong centralizing tendency, parliamentary form of government, a secular state, single citizenship, fundamental rights, directive principles of the state policy, establishment of welfare state, fundamental duties, then adult suffrage or adult franchising, an independent judiciary, official language, special status to Jammu and Kashmir. First, we'll see the, the lengthiest constitution in the world. The first feature is our constitution is the lengthiest constitution in the world. The Indian constitution is the lengthiest and it is most detailed of all written constitution, which consisting of 395 articles, and these 395 articles were divided into 12 parts and 12 schedules. So the first feature ಏನಂದ್ರೆ it is the lengthiest constitution on the world. It is lengthiest and it is most detailed constitution in the world. It contains total 395 articles and these articles were divided into 12 parts and 12 schedules. Second feature is it is the written constitution. It is a written document. Our constitution is a written document by a representative body elected for the purpose called as Constituent Assembly. Third one is it is partly rigid and partly flexible. Indian constitution is partly rigid. Its meaning is if the government wants to make any rules, if a government wants to make any amendment, then there should be a 2/3 majority of a parliament. Then only the government can amend any law. It is partly flexible. Its meaning is some of its provisions can be amended by a simple majority. Okay, partly rigid and partly flexible. Partly rigid means ಇದರ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ partly rigid means if a government wants to make some provisions, then there should be a 2/3 of majority from the parliament. Okay, the provision should get 2/3 of majority. ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿದ್ರೆ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರೊವಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಂದ 2/3 ಆಫ್ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ವೋಟ್ ಬರಲೇಬೇಕು, ಆವಾಗಷ್ಟೇ ಒಂದು ಅಮೆಂಡ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ರಿಜಿಡ್. ಪಾರ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಸಿಬಲ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ some of its provisions can be amended by simple majority of the parliament. Okay, its rules can be, the government can make rules or laws with the simple majority of the parliament. A federation with a strong centralizing tendency. Our constitution has a feature like federation with a strong centralizing tendency. This feature is called as dual polity, which means the determination of the authority of the union and of the state. Okay, our constitution is called as dual polity. Its meaning is the authority is determined as union authority as well as states authority, and the supremacy of the Supreme Court. Authority is distributed as central authority, and it is also given to the states and the supremacy of the Supreme Court. And constitution has a strong unitary or pro-union bias. Like the constitution can make use of Article 352 under national emergency conditions to meet external threat such as war or any internal armed rebellion. Okay, the constitution can impose the rule called as national emergency. Okay, our constitution can ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಅವರ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಥ್ರೂ 352 to impose national emergency. Okay, this national emergency can be imposed using article 352 to meet some external threat such as some war or any internal armed rebellion. War ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಆರ್ಮ್ಡ್ ರೆಬಿಲಿಯನ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಬಂಡುಕೋರರು ಅಂತ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ದ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಮೇಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 352. ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 352, ದ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ. And it can also use article 356. Okay, using this article 356, the constitution can implement the president rule. ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಪತಿ ಆಡಳಿತ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. It can impose president rule using article 356. This president rule can be imposed on any particular state. It can be imposed on any state. Okay, if that state fails to function properly according to the constitution, then the constitution can implement the president rule. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ರೂಲ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ಎನಿ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ fails to function properly according to the constitution. According to the constitution rules, ಅದೇನಾದ್ರೂ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ತರ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಪತಿ ಆಳ್ವಿಕೆನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತದೆ ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 356. And according to article 360, the constitution can make use of article 360. According to this article 360, the constitution can impose financial emergency conditions on the country due to some serious economic crisis. Okay, in case of any serious economic crisis, the constitution can make use of article 360 to impose financial emergency conditions. ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 352 ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಇನ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಎನಿ ವಾರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಬಂಡುಕೋರ ದಾಳಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಂತ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 352 ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 356 ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ರೂಲ್ ನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ರೂಲ್ ನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಒಂದ್ ವೇಳೆ ಆ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ರೂಲ್ ನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಯೂಸ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 360 ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಫೈನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂ ಟು ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಕ್ರೈಸಿಸ್. ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಹಿಂಜರಿತ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅಂತ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 360 ರೂಲ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು 360 ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಫೈನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಇಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಂಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿಗೆ. ಫಿಫ್ತ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟರಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್. The Constitution of India has given parliamentary form of government, both at the center as well as states. The parliamentary government can be distributed in center as well as state. In center, the president is the constitutional head of the state, but the real powers are vested in the hand of real councils of ministers with the prime minister as the head. Okay? In center, president head irtane, but the real power is given to the councils of ministers, and the prime minister is the head for the councils of ministers. This councils of ministers is collectively responsible for the lower house called as Lok Sabha. These members are elected by the people normally for 5 years. In the state ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, state ಅಲ್ಲಿ governor is the constitutional head of the state, whereas the real powers are given to the councils of ministers whose head is the chief minister. The councils of ministers are responsible for legislative assembly or the Rajya Sabha, and this legislative assembly is elected by the people for 5 years. In parliamentary form of government ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ರೀತಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಹೆಡ್, ಬಟ್ ದ ರಿಯಲ್ ಪವರ್ ಇಸ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಟು ದ prime minister. Okay, the councils of minister, for this councils of ministers whose head is the prime minister. ಸೆಂಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗೋ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ಲೋವರ್ ಹೌಸ್ ಆರ್ ಲೋಕಸಭಾ. In the state, governor is the constitutional head of the state, but the real power is vested with the councils of ministers whose head is the chief minister. Rajya Sabha and these councils of ministers, they are responsible for the formation of Rajya Sabha or the upper house. State ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗೋ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸಭಾ or upper house. Our constitution is called as a secular state. In India, all religions are treated alike. Okay, our constitution will treat all the religions as same. This provision is given under the article 25 to 28. Okay, article 25 to 28, it explains that to every person the freedom of conscience and the right to possess, practice and propagate religion and worship God according to their own conscience. Okay, according to article 25 to 28, ಇದೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್. Any person can practice, the person can practice any religion. Okay, a person is given with the freedom of conscience, right to possess, practice and propagate any kind of religion. Okay, he can worship any god according to their own conscience. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿದ್ದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ದೇವ್ರು ಬೇಕೋ ಆ ದೇವ್ರನ್ನ ವರ್ಷಿಪ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಬೇಕೋ ಆ ರಿಲಿಜನ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡೋ ರೈಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ ಸೆಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್. ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಶಿಪ್. Even though our Indian constitution has a dual polity, that is central government to state government, but it provides a single citizenship for the whole of India. That is, every Indian is a citizen of India and he can enjoy the same rights of citizenship in whichever state he resides. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಶಿಪ್. ನಮ್ದು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರು, ಎವ್ರಿ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ? ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಶಿಪ್ ರೈಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎವ್ರಿ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ. ಓಕೆ, ಅಂಡ್ he can enjoy the same rights of the citizenship in whichever state he resides. ಅವ್ನು ಯಾವುದೇ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದ್ರು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಒಂದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಸಿಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. One more feature is the fundamental rights. Our Indian constitution called as fundamental rights. Fundamental rights ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೂಲಭೂತ ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳು. These fundamental rights contains different rights such as right of life, right of freedom, right against exploitation, cultural rights, as well as religion rights, right to constitute different remedies, etc. These fundamental rights are declared in Part 3 of our Indian Constitution. Part 3 tells about fundamental rights. These rights are given to every citizen of India. One more feature is the directive principles of state policy. The directive principles of state policy are contained in Part 4 of the Constitution. Okay. Part 4 of the Constitution explains about directive principles of state policy. These directive principles, it contains different aims and objectives. Okay. These aims and objectives to be attained by states in the governance of the country. For example, the idea of welfare state is the example for directive principle of state policy. One more feature is the establishment of welfare state. The preamble of our Indian Constitution, it explains about directive principles of state policy, which aims at the establishment of welfare state in India. This welfare means it is committed to the welfare of the people of the country. Okay, establishment of this welfare state. The objective of the welfare state is to provide or attain welfare of the people. One more feature is the fundamental duties. ಮೂಲಭೂತ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯಗಳು. Okay. In 1976, the 42nd Amendment Act of the Constitution, it has introduced the Code of Fundamental Duties for our citizens. These codes are based on certain norms of democratic conduct as well as behavior. We must follow our duties. Okay, as a citizen of India, we must follow certain duties, and these duties are based on certain norms of democratic conduct as well as behavior. According to that, we have to perform our responsibility, perform our duty. One more feature is called as adult suffrage or adult franchising. According to this system, every man or woman of 18 years and above has been eligible for voting to elect a representative of legislature. Okay. Here, as a citizen of India, we have a right to vote to elect our representatives. But the voting age, the eligibility is 18 and above. One more is an independent judiciary. Our constitution has established an independent and impartial judiciary with the power of judicial review to safeguard the human rights of the citizens against the powers of centers as well as states. Okay, independent judiciary. Judiciary. Here, our judiciary system is called as impartial. Okay, its characteristic is impartial, no partiality. Our judiciary system has a power to safeguard the human rights of the citizens. Okay, it has a power to safeguard the human rights. Official language. In our India, there are many languages, but our constitution has declared the Hindi as the official language. But every state is authorized to use their own regional language for all of its official purpose. For example, our official language is Kannada. Like 15th one is the creation of all India services. Our constitution has provided a provision of creation of all India services, and this provision is declared in Article 312. Okay, the Article 312, it this is meant for the establishment of all India services such as Indian Administrative Service, that is IAS, Indian Foreign Service IFS, and IPS, Indian Police Service. These officials are appointed by the central government to all the different states. 16 one is the special status to Jammu and Kashmir. Now this provision has been removed. Okay, this provision has been taken back. So in the exam, no need to write this provision. Now we'll see functions and powers of President. President means Rashtrapati. President of India. President of India is the head of the state having all executive, legislative and judicial powers, and it is the one of the highest honors or the position in our country. President is the head of the state. I will say the appointment or election of the president. According to Article 58, a person should have the following eligibility to become a president of India. He must be a citizen of India. He should be completed 35 years. And he should be qualified to the election as a member of House of People. He must be a member of Lok Sabha. Term is 5 years. And but however, before the completion of the term, the president may be removed through a act called as impeachment motion. Article 61, it explains about impeachment motion through which the president can be removed. Then we'll see some functions and powers of president. Article 53 explains about functions and powers given to the president of India. First one is the executive power. The president of India carries out all the executive actions and controls, and he can also have a power to control all the union territories. Pondicherry, Diu and Tamil, these are the union territories. President of India has a power to control all those union territories. He has a executive power also. He can appoint prime minister. He has a power to appoint prime ministers. and ministers of union cabinet as per the prime minister's recommendations. Okay, president has a power to elect prime minister, and as per the recommendations given by the prime minister, he has a power to appoint other ministers of union cabinet, and he also has a power to appoint judges of Supreme Court as well as High Courts, and he has a power to appoint Attorney General of India, and he has a power to appoint election commissioners, governors, ambassadors, members of KPSC, etc. These are the executive powers given to president. One more is the legislative powers. He can assent the bills. Okay, when the bill is passed in the parliament with a majority of votes, then that bill has to be assented by the president. Okay, the president has to put signature on that bill, on that proposed bill. Then only that bill becomes an act. That is called as legislative power. Here, the president of India has to assent the bill. Okay, the assented bill only becomes an act. He can have a power to summon or prorogue different sessions of houses. Okay, he can arrange the sessions of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and he has the power to cancel that sessions also. That is called as prorogues. And he has the power to address the members of two houses at the beginning of the first session. Members of two houses means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The president has the power to nominate 12 members of Rajya Sabha, and he can also has the power to nominate Anglo-Indian members to the Lok Sabha. Third is the judicial power. He has the power to make ordinance as well as promulgate ordinance when the parliament is not in the session. He has the power to ordinance he has the power to ordinance and promulgate the ordinance when the parliament is not in the session. He has the power to grant pardons. When a person is sentenced to death, then that person grant pardons. That person can seek pardon from the President of India. Okay, the President of India has a power to grant pardons to the victims based on their crime. Financial powers. The President of India has the power to approve different budgets prepared by the Parliament. He approves the annual estimates of income as well as expenditure of the Parliament. For example, sanctioning the money bill, charge on different funds, recommendations of the Finance Commission, etc. One more is the emergency powers. The Article Act of 352. It explains about different emergency powers given to the President of India. This Act 352 it explains national emergency situation, national emergency under the national emergency condition, under the worst condition, it may be due to war, external aggression, or any internal aggression, or by the rebellions, ಬಂಡುಕೋರರ ದಾಳಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೇ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದ ಮೇಲೆ ದಾಳಿ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಅಂತಹ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ದ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ national emergency. Okay, by the Article 356, it explains about impose of president rule in the state. Okay, for example, if any state is not functioning as per the rules and regulations given by the constitution, then in that state the president of India can impose presidential rule, that is called as president rule. And the article 360 it explains about declaration of financial emergency. Okay, this financial emergency due to the financial crisis, ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಹಿಂಜರಿತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಂದಾಗ ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಪತಿಯವರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು, he can impose financial emergency on the state as well as center, and he has the power to declare the war. And the last one is diplomatic powers. The President of India has the power to send or receive the ambassadors or the other diplomatic representatives, brand ambassadors in the curriculum. He has the power to represent, he has the power to send or receive the ambassadors and the other diplomatic representatives. And he has the power to sign the international treaties as well as agreements. ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಜೊತೆ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಅಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೈನ್ ಹಾಕೋದಿದ್ರೆ, ಅಗ್ರಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತುಕತೆ ಮಾಡೋದಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಸೈನ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಆಸ್ ದ ಪವರ್ ಟು ಸೈನ್ ದ ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ treaties as well as agreements. KPSC, Karnataka Public Service Commission. According to the Article 320, the Indian Constitution has provided a KPSC or Public Service Commission. In our state, the Public Service Commission is called as KPSC, Karnataka Public Service Commission, which conducts the examinations for recruitment of the candidates to the various services of the state. The selection of the candidates to the various categories of post in the state civil services is made on the basis of both competitive examination as well as personality test. Second one, only by interview. And third one is only by competitive examinations. Okay, Article 320. It tells about the Constitution of India has provided a Public Service Commission to every state which conducts the examinations for recruitment of the candidates to the various services of the state. And the state ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ ಇದೆ ಆ ಸರ್ವಿಸಸ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ರಿಕ್ರೂಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಥ್ರೂ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಎಂದು ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್. ಓಕೆ, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ? KPSC, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಸರ್ವಿಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಸ್ ಟು recruit the candidates for various services of the state. The selection of the candidates can be made on the basis of both competitive examination as well as personality test. It is by interview. As interview ಮತ್ತೆ competitive exam ಮೂಲಕ. Second one is only by the interview. Only interview. Third one is only by competitive examination. Next we will see the composition. ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ KPSC? It consists of chairman as well as 9 members and secretary and the controller of the examination. ಯಾರ್ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ? The chairman of the Public Service Commission or the KPSC and 9 members and secretary. The secretary means he is an IS officer and the controller of examination. Examination ಯಾರು ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅದ್ರ ಚೀಫ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ? ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲರ್. Is the chief of the examination, that is controller of examination. Next we will see some functions of KPSC. Its function is it recruits the candidates to the various civil services across the state, and it also conducts the selection procedure. It conducts personality test as well as written competitive examination. It also conducts interview for the candidates for the final selection. Okay, ಏನೇನ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ functions? It recruits candidates to the various civil services. It also conducts different selection procedures. ಆಯ್ತಾ? It also conducts some personality test. It also conducts some interviews and it also conducts some written examination, competitive examinations. It also conducts interview for the candidates for the final selection. Final selection ಯಾವಾಗ ಬೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಾಗ್ತದೆ? Interviews or the GD group discussions ಇರ್ಬೋದು. And it circulates the notifications for recruitment of the candidates. And it also circulates different require and it also circulates different notifications to get the requirement of human resource from different departments. These are the different functions given to KPS.